Welcome to Tech Attack, the show on Zoomin TV in which we dive into the world of gadgets and technology. My name is Tamtu, and today we're going to talk about virtual currencies. I'm pretty sure you know about Bitcoin, but there's a whole lot more to tell. And right here we have Vincent, and he can tell us more about it. So, can you start by explaining how this can exist?
Well, it's really a weird thing because normally money can only exist if you have a country and if you have banks, if you have central authority who decides, give me the money and I'll give it back to you and I will basically guarantee the value. With virtual currencies, it's just a bunch of computers. Nobody's in charge. They all talk to each other and they keep track of who has what currency.
Okay.
And normally you would say, how can that exist? Because all these people who have the computers running, who are they? How are they connected to each other? How can they trust each other? How do you know that one transaction is sent to the other, that it's okay? We need a government and we normally need a bank, but in this case with virtual transactions, virtual currencies, that doesn't happen.
Right. So with actual currency, money is printed, it goes to the bank and that generates a number
Well,
that
it
we
used
can
to be
use.
gold. It used to be silver, gold. It used to be paper with a stamp of the central authority in that country says this is real money, and if you basically want gold, then you can get it back. In this case, it's just a bunch of computer programs who are running all over the world, who are connected and who verify each other. They control each other.
Okay, so how is this currency generated?
It started 5 years ago, the virtual currency, and then basically it started with a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto.
Hi.
Nobody knows who he is. He's completely anonymous, and he basically wrote a paper. He says virtual currency can exist, and it should work like this. We write a program, and if you run that program on your computer, you get a bunch of virtual currencies. In this case, Bitcoin, which is the most known version.
Right.
And so there were 10 computers all over the world. They installed the Bitcoin software and they started to basically run that program. Every day, when you run that program on your computer, you got 5 Bitcoins, 10 Bitcoins, 20 Bitcoins.
Okay.
And so at the end of the day, you have 20 Bitcoins or 30 Bitcoins. What you could do is send it to other people who has a Bitcoin account. And I can send it to you. It has no value. It didn't have any value. It was just fun. My God, I now have 150 Bitcoins and I can send it to somebody else. So I can send 10 Bitcoins from my account to the other person. And now I have not 150, but 140. And you have not 10, but you have 20.
Yeah.
And it was just for fun. People did that for fun to prove a point. But there were 1,000 people having computers and 10,000 people having computers. And by the software gave you every year you were mining that program and you got a bunch of Bitcoins. You couldn't do anything with it. So then people started to accept money. The first one said, I'll accept it as a tip. If you buy something from me, tip me. I like to have some Bitcoins. Well, that person got 100,000 Bitcoins. Just like that. Then there was somebody who says, I'll basically ship a pizza to you. And I want 1,000 Bitcoins for it. And so then suddenly there was a value because a pizza is $10. And if you need 1,000 Bitcoins to pay for the pizza, then the value is 1 cent.
Exactly.
So, and people for fun started to basically accept Bitcoins. The biggest acceptor was a company which accepted digital wishing cards. You know, just these little wishing cards which you could wish to somebody else. They started to accept that. They suddenly had hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins because everybody goes, oh my God, we have somewhere where we can go with our Bitcoins and send it out. A couple of years it went from a total geeky system where which all people did to prove that it could be done. People started to use it to invest and to basically speculate and to use it as a payment system because more and more vendors are accepting it.
Right. So you mentioned the people in Cyprus, they were buying Bitcoin. How did that start out? Because at first it was mined from the programs, but now you can buy it. How does that work?
Yeah, there is a Bitcoin exchange. It's like a Bitcoin bank. And basically they will buy Bitcoins or sell you Bitcoins at a particular value. And they basically supply and demand determines what the value is. But for in the last 5 years, it went from 1 cent to now about $600.
Wow.
Yeah. So imagine the guy who basically bought a pizza for 1,000 Bitcoins. You know, that's the biggest, the most expensive. That's a pizza of $600,000.
That's the most expensive pizza ever.
Yeah. Bitcoin in its basic value is just a bunch of numbers. It's a big bunch of numbers, and if you have that number, then you own the Bitcoin. If you lose that number, then you basically lose. Then you lose all the money. So Bitcoins are stored in a wallet, and wallet can be accessed with a sort of a username password approach. If you forget the username password,
it's gone.
It's completely gone. It's still there out there, but nobody can reach it anymore. It's phantom. It's phantom money. So you basically need to save it. You can print it out, those numbers, then you can put it in a vault. You can basically store it on your phone. You can basically email it to other people. You can put it in a PDF, or you can store it into a Bitcoin bank. And Mt. Gox was one of those Bitcoin banks where you could store it.
Right. And what happened to Mt. Gox?
Well,
recently?
the software, the guy who were digital wishing cards software, it was the software sucked. And a certain hacker just went in and basically said, oh, this really is bad PHP software. And they went in and they basically robbed, 10,000 people from their Bitcoin and robbed 700 million euro of stuff. It had nothing to do with that the Bitcoin was hacked. It was just that the software to keep track of a bunch of numbers, that was basically, that was not okay. So everybody thought, oh my God, the Bitcoin is being hacked and, and all the money is gone. But the Bitcoin system was completely, the integrity was completely there. Just a stupid guy basically who keeps track of accounts of Bitcoins got hacked. And it was also, there was also another interesting moment. So after Cyprus, the value was $100. Then China became involved, and Bandu, which is a big shopping site in China, started to accept Bitcoin as money. So lots of Chinese started to buy Bitcoins, and the value went up in a couple of days to $1,000
per Bitcoin.
Per Bitcoin, yeah.
Wow.
That thing which was 1/10 of a cent, or which was worth nothing, 3 years ago. But then a couple of months later, the Central Bank of China said, you will not accept Bitcoin as payment. And so they dropped it, and all the Chinese unloaded their Bitcoins and couldn't do anything with it. And so the value went back to $400.
So there
and
are
now
a lot
it's
of
back to
highs
$600. Yeah, well, it's basically, it's a beautiful graph which goes up, but there's a big Chinese thing, and there's a big peak which goes down when Mt. Gox went bankrupt. But now everything is hunky-dory and people using it. If you go to booking.com, they will accept Bitcoins, or Expedia. So you can buy tickets, you can buy hotels, you can buy just about anything with Bitcoins at this moment. And it's internationally. Now, the funny thing is, I was organizing a Bitcoin conference and to show bankers about Bitcoin, because everybody in the banking world thinks that Bitcoin is fake and doesn't exist and is really not something which is interesting. And I was organizing it, and my cleaning man said, "Oh, you're talking about Bitcoin. I use Bitcoin all the time." And I go like, well, he's from the Philippines. I go, why do you use Bitcoin? Well, if I basically send money to another country, I have to go Western Union, or I have to use the banking system. It costs me $50. But with Bitcoin, it costs me $1 to go from euro to Bitcoin. I send it to my wife in the Philippines. It's there in 20 seconds. It doesn't cost anything. And she basically then buys local currency in the Philippines.
Right.
But the nice thing is, I paid him in euro. He basically sent all the money to his wife, but his wife only took the money out which she needed.
So it stayed in their wallet.
So most of the Bitcoin stayed in the wallet. So this guy now has 250,000 euro in his Bitcoin wallet, which is way more than he makes in 5 years. So I have, it's not a Bitcoin millionaire, but I have one of the most richest cleaners of Bitcoins employed. And I didn't even know that. So worldwide, there is about 1 billion people who have a bank account. There's 7 billion people who do not have a bank account. And opening a bank account with Bitcoin is downloading a wallet, program, just a little app. You say make a wallet, make a Bitcoin account, and from that moment I can send you all over the world. I can send Bitcoin money to you, and you can everywhere all over the world. You can basically go to local currency. So it's a great exchange mechanism.
Exactly.
But it's also a great payment system. It's because it's so simple to pay somebody else. No transaction fees.
None of that.
No government. Nobody who can control it, and it's totally fluid. And there's a bunch of people who started with Bitcoins who hate banks and who hate governments. And this is sort of an anti-authority kind of thing.
It's like an anarchy in currency.
Yeah, but now bankers and now governments see it also. This is so easy, and this works so fluently, and the transaction costs are so low. This is innovation. We need to look our banking system is so primitive and it's so slow and so expensive, we can learn something from Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I can imagine that governments aren't really happy with Bitcoin. Are they afraid of it, or do they just want to take control
of course.
of it?
I mean, of course, they cannot control it. It's very fluid. It's everywhere, all over the world. Now, it's not anonymous. Every transaction in Bitcoin is recorded in a general ledger, and everybody can look into all the Bitcoins. Actually, when you run the Bitcoin program on your computer, a copy of all the transactions is on your computer. So you can basically go through and say, hey, this Bitcoin account from you, what did this person spend? And you can see the whole transaction list. It's only numbers. You cannot see who are the names behind it.
Right.
Yes, but it's not really anonymous. It's completely transparent. You just don't know who owns which accounts. But it's innovative. It's fast. It's completely online. It's completely mobile, and it's completely international and cheap.
Right. So virtual currencies, they're still, despite all this, it's still in a very early phase. But do you think there's a future for this?
Gee, well, yes. I mean, if you go from 5 years from a paper to now, the total value of Bitcoins is now 7.2 billion, and it goes up like this. And everybody's looking at it, everybody's talking about it. All the banks are see it as the major innovation. 6 billion people have no bank account, and you can open your bank account if you have a smartphone. And a smartphone is 30, 40 euro, and you basically have your own system. So yes, it's going to be big. And if Bitcoin disappears, it is because a much better virtual currency comes along.
Okay, so the availability, it's obviously on computers. On smartphones, is there a limitation, like the OS that you're using it on?
Oh, well, every smartphone in the world can use it, except for Mr. Apple.
Really?
Where Mr. Apple basically thinks that Bitcoin is something illegal. And I must say, well, in the beginning of the Bitcoin time, long time ago, in 2012,
wow,
about 5% of the Bitcoin transaction went to a site called the Silk Road. And the Silk Road, you could buy heroin and all kinds of drugs and all kinds of illegal, everything which was illegal you could buy on that Silk Road website.
Okay.
So because of that that period, that money you can use it legally or you can use it illegally. It's now getting much more in the mainstream, and you can buy tickets and hotels and everything with it. But those periods, it had a
very negative stigma about it.
Well, yeah, for some people it's wonderful if you can buy marijuana, but Apple said, we don't allow that. So with Apple, you have to go in the browser. And you cannot buy a nice, beautiful Bitcoin wallet with an address book where it's very simple to do. So, but I think Apple,
eventually
will change their minds, but very slowly.
So that begs the question: do you use Bitcoin? Have you ever used it? Share your experience down here in the comments. Thank you, Vincent, once again for this very elaborate explanation about Bitcoin. I'm Tam2. This is Vincent, and we'll see you on the next Tech Attack.